Hi, I'm Melissa Bell, and welcome to the Business Roundup, where we catch up with the movers and shakers in the business world. Today, joining me is Mark Weinstein. He is a privacy expert, tech entrepreneur, and the author of a new book. Thank you for joining me today.
It's great to be here. It's such an important conversation. Melissa, thank you for inviting me on the program.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I have a daughter who's 13. So a lot of these things, these topics, really weigh heavily on my mind as well. So I'm interested in learning more. Now, can you start off by sharing a little bit about your background and what prompted you to write the book, Restoring Our Sanity Online?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, everybody. I'm now considered one of the original gangsters of social media and OG. I built my first social network back in the late 90s. So I'm also considered one of the original founders of the whole, market segment called social media. And back in the day, I built something called superfamily.com and superfriends.com, and they were both PC Magazine top 100 sites, 99, 2000, 2001. That's back then. Fast forward, I continued. I wrote some books on leadership and greatness that were endorsed by Stephen Covey, and then I came back in Web 2. That was Web 1. I came back in Web 2. I ran a beta project for several years on a Facebook competitor that truly respected users, and our users were our customers to serve, not data to track, manipulate, and sell. So, and that company still exists. That's MeWe, M-E-W-E. I'm no longer running MeWe. I left as executive. I left in 2021. And here's the thing, I've been very active. I've written a lot. I publish a ton, op-eds around the world, and I'm interviewed around the world. From the Wall Street Journal to Fortune, Forbes, so many outlets, Fox, The Hill. I'm bipartisan, because these topics are not partisan. The issue of what's happened to social media, how it's become degraded, how it's really tragic. I have a TED Talk called The Rise of Surveillance Capitalism from 2020. For everybody who wants to watch that, it's 9 minutes. So if you want to get just a quick and really enjoyable, purvey of what is surveillance capitalism, which is what Web 2 is, where, the social media companies and the search engines like Google and met everybody, TikTok, the whole, X, they're watching us. They watch everything you do, everything you say. They aggregate everything about you. They're tracking you sometimes when you're not even on their site at the moment. They're seeing who you're interacting with, where you are, what you're saying, what you're doing. And with AI, algorithms always did a massive analysis of that, aggregated your data, and then served that up to the advertisers and marketers. They could target you, manipulate your opinions, and your purchase decisions. So in 2021, after watching, what I felt was Meta's massive interference with MeWe over the years, I had an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about that, where I say I've changed my mind. Facebook is a monopoly. I left the company and I endeavored to research and draft really how we fix the mess called social media. Remember, the web is really young. The inventor of the web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, is one of my friends, and he been one of my advisors for many, many years as well. And Tim didn't invent the web, and I didn't come into social media for the purpose of stealing people's privacy, tracking and manipulating them, learning everything about them, and selling them down the river. Social media was invented so that the world would become a more harmonious place, so that we could stay connected with our family and friends and like-minded people who are around the world now, because we can work anywhere. Social media had a really great vision. And at the beginning in Web 1, that's what it was. Nobody envisioned bots and trolls. Nobody envisioned surveillance capitalism. Nobody even thought about the fact that we were going to take away people's privacy, and not we, these other guys. Anyway, so 3 years later, Restoring Our Sanity Online, endorsed by Woz. Those of you who know Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, endorsed by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the web. Both these guys say it's a must-read. You got to read this. It's the roadmap for how we get out of this mess. And it's all happening, and we can participate, but it's also anecdotal. It's a great story. It also tells the story of how big ag and big energy, also had these sort of like monopolistic movements before, this sort of like, the restoration where, solar energy came around in agriculture, it's turned to organic farming and things like that. So it's big tech's turn. And here we are.
Today. And some of those things that we're talking about are obviously privacy, safety for kids, kid safety. What are some of the top things that really concern you right now? You have AI, it's really advancing at a fast pace. What are some of the things that are like really like where we really need to tackle these issues right now?
Well, first of all, the United States is really the only major Western civilized country that doesn't have a federal privacy law for children. And there are, laws. There's COPPA 2. There's the Kids Online Safety Act, these are pending in Congress. They have been pending in Congress for a while. The original COPPA, the Privacy Protection Act, Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, is outdated. COPPA 2 and COSA are here, but we need movement. We just saw the Trump administration Congress passed and Trump signed the Take It Down Act, so that, so we can protect our kids better if there's, sexual harassment, things like that. If there's lies, if there's, imaging that can be taken down, sites are responsible to take this stuff down within a day or two. But we need more. So what we really need is we've got to protect our kids from AI, because what AI is doing, these AI friends, for example, Snap has an AI friend, everybody is putting their AI into their site now. And sometimes it's helpful. Like when you look at a search engine that uses AI to give you an answer, as long as that AI research is unbiased, we're getting better answers than we ever got from search engines. But when you go to a social media company and they have an AI bot that's a friend for you, and that AI friend can make you feel good, can make you feel better, can soothe you, can make you laugh, can do all these things. But in fact, all that it's really doing, because it's a robot, it's just gathering data on you and feeding that into the data ecosystem while it's making people hooked on robots. It's manipulating kids, again, because it's a two-way street. It's interacting with our kids. So it's now giving them ideas, opinions, and, kids don't have any ability to critical think. An AI friend is, because critical thinking is also part of what's missing in this sort of massive experience of social media for kids. We got a lot of issues here.
That's a good point because I even noticed that kids, there's so much being pushed on them from every avenue of social media. They don't really, a lot of times they're not really interacting or getting like these critical skills or these things, even from school, because they're still hooked onto the computers and they're still hooked on. So they're not really having those like interpersonal connections like we did with like professors and teachers as much and other, grown-ups and that type of thing.
Kids also are not, there's creativity that's being lost. Critical thinking is getting washed out, and this is very important. Here's the reality. Even before the web, there were studies that showed that up until about the age of 13, the children believed that what they saw on the ads or heard, on TV or heard on the radio or saw on the billboards, they believed all that was true. Because critical thinking is a skill that, the brain takes about 22 years to fully develop. Critical thinking is not an early skill, no matter how much we teach our kids. So when they're being inundated with this messaging over and over again, they just believe it's true. So now when you overload them with hours online, hours on social media, um, they completely lose that function of critical thinking. And schools haven't caught up yet to teach children critical thinking, because critical thinking now becomes a skill to continuously be taught throughout the educational career of a child. I mean, I'm talking elementary school, middle school, high school, and college. So, because otherwise, as a society, we are utterly susceptible to the wrongful and false manipulation of, misleading and false information. So we have a huge challenge here. It's very important. MIT is looking at this. They've come out with a program for college age kids, but we've got to get this down all the way down. And kids even, creativity. You mentioned creativity, Melissa. So kids are using like a Google search to figure out how they're going to write a birthday card or, a thank you card instead of their own awesome and beautiful creativity in how they think about how to say thank you and how to say happy birthday and how to give these congratulatory greetings and how to write a paper and things like that. Now, of course, all kids today, your 13-year-old, and I have children also. They're all on the computer for school. We know that, but the schools are doing their very best, and especially there's more work in the classrooms now to make sure that kids are actually using their creative brains instead of going home, especially in elementary school, and drafting something that actually was drafted from, a computer. So we have a lot of work to do to save our children right
And as a visionary who, in the beginning of social media, I know you've seen it grow, but what are some of the things we could do better? We've talked about a few of them, but like in your book, what are some of the things that we can start doing as a society, culture?
now. Well, let's start as parents. Because, the golden rule totally applies here. And the golden rule I'm talking about is that children do what you do, not what you tell them to do. So, don't expect your kids to be more masterful and better behaved about using a smartphone than you are. This also means that, you've got to put your phone down at night, and everybody's phone in the house has got to go into a common charging dock, a common charging area, no phones in bedrooms. This, as we know, is really causing a huge amount of issues for teenage girls, especially because, they're now so hooked on what is being said by their girlfriends and then by the algorithm, which giving them a feed, about what they should look like and what they should be talking about and how they should be thinking. So you've got to shut it down. You've got to limit. Now, the school systems, again, are helping. School systems are starting to ban phones and ban use of phones in schools all the way through high school. This is huge. This is critically important. But what do we need to do as parents and as humans? First of all, for most of us, we're using our phones as a work tool, grown-ups. And this is a very important distinction. So it's hard not to use your phone around, your more mature kids. But around babies, now we're going to come down to like the 0 to 2-year-olds. So even Sweden has said, basically they are now working on banning screen time for any kids under the age of 2 because, as we all know, listen, if you didn't grow up with social media, you still grew up with a television. We know how addictive the screen is. And the studies are clear now. The research is very evident. If you are using a phone out of convenience for your 1-year-old or 2-year-old, when you're out at a restaurant or where you're cooking dinner, where you're doing something, you are making I'm sorry, everybody, but you're making a massive critical thinking mistake about the limited harm that you're doing. You're doing a huge amount of harm. You're actually creating an addiction very early to the screen. And instead of children learning to be creative, the phone is being creative for them. So really, you've got to just surround your kids with, those cardboard book, pages first, and then you've got to just toys and all kinds of stuff. And you really got to help them manage, even at a restaurant, no matter how small they are. Never a phone. If your kid is just acting out, then they're just going to act out. If they're going to make a mess, they're going to make a mess. If you got to walk around the restaurant with them, then that's what you have to do. Don't give them a phone, and get a babysitter. So I can't tell you guys how critical this is in terms of the formation of their brain, the formation of the creative skills and critical thinking of their heads. And then as it continues, you've really got to continue to limit. The computer is, in preschool and in TK and in kinder, they may use the computer, as an illustrative tool. They may show them a video that has some value. It's going to be very limited. Once they're in elementary school, they're going to be using the computer for Google Classroom and things like that. You can't stop that. But the teachers are very adamant about real books, real reading, real writing skills, real math skills, all this stuff, while you will be using Khan Academy, Reflex, other tools online for them to learn. But outside of that, recreational use, YouTube, guys, don't let your kids have a free, run at YouTube. Never mind TikTok and Insta, or any social media site. You really want to help them develop properly. Get them into sports. Get them, anyway, books, all those things. Now that's kids. Now, here's the problem for us grown-ups. Social media, and as I said, I'm one of the inventors of social media. We didn't imagine that it was going to become a political disruptor. That, both sides could spend hundreds of millions of dollars on social media to influence and to spread lies, because it's not illegal to lie. We know Elon Musk spent $300 million on the last presidential election. $300 million, a private citizen. So this is a new era. Democracy is now at stake. And the only way really to address this, and again, when we first started creating social media, we were just connecting people because it was a better tool than a telephone. Social media was extraordinary. Even back in the 90s, late 90s, we had albums, we had like sticky, fridge, we had chats, we had all photo share, we had everything. Nothing's really changed. People don't realize that. Just that it's faster and better in terms of the technology. But we now have to be looking at how we're addicted. So, Melissa, you and I are not in our teens. Okay, everybody, we're not in our teens. But we see this with teenagers, but also with our peers, where they're spending more time on social media than ever before, and they can't get off. And they say, I just can't get off. But here's why. This is artificial intelligence. So the algorithms were always manipulating your newsfeed. They have that whole data packet on you, which is thousands of pages. And it's all aggregators. They know exactly what you're interested in, what they think you could be interested in. So they're always manipulating you. But now AI is doing it in nanoseconds, watching what you're looking at, watching what the next thing you're reading, and then quickly adjusting and anticipating your next thought before you think it. That's how good AI is. So this is what's happening. Your news feeds are now AI driven to keep you utterly hooked. And AI knows exactly how to do it. Talk about phenomenal learning of your brain. And even several years ago, I think it was 2018, there was a reporter at The Guardian who asked Facebook, what to give him with what data they had. I forget what it is, something like 16,000 pages of data as a regular human being. So when it was distributed that way. So the amount of data the data ecosystem has on us is phenomenal. So even though you can't tell in that second you're being manipulated, I want you to understand you are being manipulated every second, every time you go onto an X, an Insta, TikTok, a Facebook, where, your news feed, even, as we know, Facebook's been manipulating your news feed, just your regular news feed of your family and friends for years. They decide who they think you want to see from, who you want to hear from. And they adjust everything. Now AI does it quicker, faster. And with this misinformation, because during an election cycle, when there's hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars really being poured into the ad and marketing system online, then the AI systems know immediately how vulnerable your brain is to being sold a new idea or tricking you to change your opinion. It's very slick. It's very dangerous. Democracy is in the crosshair.
That makes sense. I know I've experienced it where, something pops up on Instagram, and if I even watch that video for just a few seconds, it will, um,
It
yeah,
really takes over your brain.
absolutely.
And then, remember the purpose is these are money machines. They when when this AI algorithm is changing your opinion about something, that's because somewhere there was a political operative, an advertiser, a marketer who paid to have that done. Paid to have that, these sort of ads or these manipulations perpetrated. So it's very nefarious. I mean, it's technology is fast, government regulation is slow to catch up. It's technology is running way ahead of us. Now AI, of course, has a lot of benefits, or we know this, we all know this. Its ability to discern and advance medicine and medical technologies and things like that. Its ability to work really extraordinarily well in quality control, even in manufacturing and weeding out, in identifying more efficient ways of producing something with less variations and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of really massively good benefits to AI, but at what cost? We've got to really take a look at what's happening to us, and also whether we're being manipulated, whether, Melissa, you and I are in a conversation in a thread on Meta or Insta or somewhere else, but what if we're both using AI? Because we both could be, and we don't know it. So we're actually having AI run the conversation for us instead of us. Again, we lose our ability to critical think. It's really a big conundrum.
Things in the book. So we talked about, like, as far as privacy and just, us as adults, what are some steps like in regards to that? Like, should we like cut back on the amount of time we spend on social media, try to take our privacy back? Because I know I was watching the video and it's about the privacy revolution. What are some things we can do to kind of take our privacy back and try to regain that?
Well, everybody, the book is actually moving us forward. So the book really, while it has a lot of actions, almost every chapter has an action list of what you can do right now, but the book is really a mix of storytelling and future telling, because there are things coming and we can all participate in this. Web3 doesn't really work, but data portability does. And so as we watch right now, the antitrust case between the Federal Trade Commission and Meta, one of the outcomes of it might be, data portability. Now, what does that mean? Well, imagine if you could actually get your whole personal graph. It's called your personal graph, which is on Facebook and Insta. If you could grab your whole personal graph, download it, move it somewhere else, and upload it perfectly intact, because there was another site, another social media site that actually aligns with your values, doesn't spy on you, doesn't track you or your data, doesn't target you, etc. And you could very perfectly do that, and your friends could also come along and do exactly the same thing. Today, that's impossible. So there's something called the network effect, so we're all stuck. You might want to get off of Meta. You might want to get off of Insta. There have been many studies written where 80, 90% of people, many studies done, where, the vast majority of people have said they would gladly move to a privacy-centric, where your privacy is protected, where you're not the product that's sold, social media site. But the issue is their friends don't come along. And the reason why not is because they're stuck. The social graph, your personal graph, is all stuck. So everybody and all their stuff and all those pictures and all of that history is stuck on Meta, on Facebook. So we've got to make it very easy for, for the apps that you want to be on, for you to move and for other people to move too and say, oh, that's better. I want to be respected. That's high integrity. That's actually the privacy I'm looking for and the social experience I'm looking for. Remember, a site that protects your privacy isn't limiting your ability to be social. They're just protecting you and your data from being in the wrong hands or being targeted and manipulated, etc. So data portability, which is also, you might hear the phrase data interoperability, is critical. It's coming. Now, a more controversial but also helpful initiative that's coming is user ID verification. Now, I've been one of the world's leading privacy advocates for years. And when this idea was first floated at a government committee meeting that I was at years ago, I shot it down. I'm like, you guys are crazy. You can't do this. You can't put a user ID system on the web so that everybody's identified. I've changed my mind, not about the whole web, but about social media. So user ID verification for social media, where we're interacting the way we're doing so that kids are protected. We don't want your 13-year-old being tricked by someone pretending to be 13, but they're really a 50-year-old creep and they're dangerous. So we must have user ID verification in a very narrow but highly effective manner for social media. So, and this, around the world, there's systems being designed. So even if someone doesn't have a driver's license or is, third world country, whatever, but we can actually, sort of crack the code here and get user ID verification for social media. Now, this doesn't mean for whistleblowers, doesn't mean for marginalized people. We're just talking about if you're on Insta, you're on TikTok, you're on Meta, wherever you're on X. It's like, all right, this will also, by the way, eradicate bots and trolls. So, because, if we've got, a highly effective and a very narrow scope of user ID verification for the purpose of social media, then the bots and trolls, which are really the perpetrators of so much discord, and there are bots and troll farms around the world, nefarious countries. I mean, there's, tens of thousands and actually millions of bots and trolls. I think it was, it was Time Magazine, it might have been, that reported a handful of years ago that even Elon Musk, his followers on X, half of them were bots and trolls. And we're talking about millions. And same thing for Joe Biden. I think the article said Biden and Musk. This is for everybody. Anybody who's got a massive following, because the bots and trolls have been allowed to propagate really on social media sites because they increase the value of the site. They increase the engagement because they're spreading all this stuff. They're paying. You can get a blue check on X if you're a bot or troll. Farms, bot and troll farms, can be programmed to use credit cards to, to pay for a blue check. So we've really got to get ourselves together about using user ID verification in an appropriate manner to protect our kids and also ourselves. So if someone is pushing an opinion across our news feed, then we know who it is. That's great. Then we can interact. Instead of, as I say in my interviews, we all in America, we don't hate each other, but we've been manipulated to hate each other. So this is the perfect disruption of democracy. It's not inside our country. It's nefarious countries. It's all this dark money that comes in and these bots and trolls that come in. They want to disrupt our democracy because our democracy is a civil democracy and disagreement is the backbone of a highly functioning democracy. Now, we want to remember that, everybody, all you Americans. Disagreement is the backbone of democracy. It always has been. We're allowed to disagree. We're allowed to have different opinions. We're allowed to argue about it. That's the beauty of it. We don't go to jail for it and we don't get persecuted for it. And that's how it works. And we can try and convince our neighbors, but we don't hate our neighbor if they have a different opinion. That's not America. So we've got to really, there's a whole bunch of things to fix. User ID verification, data portability, It's what I call Web 4. Web 3 isn't really the fix. I don't believe Web 3 is going to work. It's too clunky. It can't work for tens of millions of users. In the book, I'll talk about Web 3. I'll talk about these huge monopolistic movements. It's very interesting when you look at history of, big energy, big agriculture, and big tech, and how, listen, we're capitalists. And capitalism is a great economic system. And in order for it to become purely highly functioning, we have antitrust regulations to prohibit monopolies from, coming into existence. Because if you're really good at what you do, investors are going to throw money at you. You're going to get so much money and so many customers, you can buy out your competition, and then you can become the only one. Then you can do price, you can set prices, you can set all the rules. And that's where capitalism breaks down. So this is where government comes in, and it works. So this is what we've got to, make sure that we support what's called the free market. And this is what's happened now. Recently there's the case against Google, and the government won. So we're waiting to see how Google is forced to change and to allow competition to come in instead of, they basically blocked out all competition. We're waiting to see the result of the Meta trial, Federal Trade Commission. Those results will come in the next few months. But we need to support the free market so that us as consumers, as social media consumers, as search engine consumers, as technology consumers, so we have choice. We have choice in the automobile market. We have choice at the supermarket. We have choice. We need to have choices so that the whole ecosystem is healthy.
Right. And that allows to have a little bit of the, I don't want to say a piece of the pie, but spread it out. Otherwise, you just have a bunch of, people that are high up here and then everybody else is, that's also, kind of what ends up happening in a lot of different places where capitalism goes out of control.
Yeah. And so the book will talk about Web 4. Now, I'm really the first person talking about what I call Web 4, which is this restoration networking, which is, this advancement. Listen, the printing press took 100 years to sort out. Now, the web and social media is still brand new. We're at like the 35-year marker right now. That's nothing. And look how fast technology moves. So, it's time now for us to just catch our breath and go, oh, okay, this has just gotten out of control, just like the printing press did, perpetrating incredible falsehoods everywhere. And then, it's just now got to sort it out and get it to a place where we can all trust it, or we can make choices so that we can protect ourselves and we can help our children. And basically we can save our democracies. Whoever thought that social media was going to be, where democracy was going to break down? Certainly I didn't, as one of the inventors of social media. Someone said that to me. I said, what are you talking about? That is crazy. That's crazy talk. But here we are. Social media is where democracy and, the life cycle of democracy is playing out.
We're at this kind of like where we need to go one way or the other. This is like the road to make those changes. And now if people want to, is the book out? Like
Yes.
right now? Okay.
Yeah.
Where can
Book
they
that out. You can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever your favorite independent bookstore. The book is also available on Kindle. The book is also available in audio. The audio version just came out. It's right now just, great reviews, really stellar, and it's very honoring to see that. This book, like I said, it took 3 years, everybody, and I document everything I write about. So there are over 400 footnotes in the book in the back, so you can see the sources for anything that I say. I am a rigorous fact checker from highly credible sources. So because I don't want to be perpetrating any falsehoods myself, of course. So it's one thing that you can really enjoy about the book is you're reading the best of possible truth that I can pull in. And also there are stories throughout, because after all, I've been in social media for, 27, 28 years. And the stories, I mean, there's some of these stories are hilarious. The time that Facebook asked everybody in Australia to send them a naked picture of themselves. I mean, you will not believe the stuff that's been going down in social media that's real. So it's really fun. I have a good sense of humor. So you're also going to have a good time reading this book.
I started on it and I'm definitely enjoying it, and it's very informative, and I like this type of topic anyways because it's fascinating to me as far as the way social media has just evolved, and AI, because I do come from a generation where a TV, that was it. I don't think we've had cell phones. I think when I was like probably like 19 or 20, and that was the people who had a lot of money, so it was beepers. So it's the changes are unbelievable.
Sorry, I forgot about that. The pager era, where everybody had a beeper or a pager, and then you could see what phone number was trying to reach you.
I know, and the computer was dial up back then. I mean, well, in my 20s, it was like dial up where it took like hours to get on the on the
Yeah, my
computer.
first social media company, superfamily.com and Super Friends were built around dial-up. And at the time in the late 90s, there weren't engineers who knew how to engineer for social media because it didn't exist as a paradigm. So I would hire the best graphic designers, the best engineers out of Sandia Labs and other places, and but my graphic designers couldn't design a page that would load. They didn't understand the technological aspects of dial-up, for example. And so, yeah, it took a while for us all to get it. It's amazing that Super Family and Super Friends, which became PC Magazine Top 100 sites, functioned on dial-up. We were massively efficient back then. I had the best engineers. But it took a few years to get it all sorted out.
Well, I'm excited to finish the book, and I hope other people go and check it out. And I would love to have you back, down the road after we see what happens with Google and some of these other changes.
I'm happy to come back. Listen, everybody, this is the conversation of our lives, really. It's for us, it's for our parents, it's for our kids, because this is affecting everybody. We're all, at the mercy of the social media companies, because it's also, 50% of us get our news on Facebook. I mean, it's the stats are incredible. So when you think that Meta has the ability to manipulate the news that 50% of Americans see, because 50% of us are getting our news on Meta. I mean, this is really a moment in time. And, for all of us, it's like we want to get our brains back. We want to be in charge of our thoughts and our critical thinking.
Well, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The book is Restoring Our Sanity Online, everybody.
Hi, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Business Roundup. If you haven't already, please subscribe or follow us on Instagram or YouTube. Also, feel free to leave comments below on topics you'd like us to cover. Until next time, I'm Melissa Bell.